Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the World Championship finalist and arguably the best Protoss in the world. With the StarCraft 1 probes in the blue, we have Classic. And speaking of Classic pros, many of you might recognize the Terran on the other side of the map. It's Taeja in a highlight Terran versus Protoss showdown. Part of Enki's epic series on the StarCraft Evo mod, the mod that brings StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2 together. So if you like either of those games, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button and maybe even subscribe. Help convince the algorithm for something a little bit different. And se hablas más español, mira en el video completo en el canal de Enki. Y Jimmy, ¿en qué estamos? 1,703 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I can do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better than classics, as Taeja has broken out an absolutely classic StarCraft 2 cheese. It's looking like a Reaper directly across the map here on Blue Storm, a map I believe inspired or directly drawn from the Brood War. It seems Classic is very much aware of these possibilities though, as he's putting some spotter/blocking pylons. Is he gonna put two Is that work? Does that? Wow. Okay, so the existential threat of a Reaper is so well. He saw the Rex. It's not just the threat of a Reaper. He knows there's a Reaper on the way. So Classic looking to shut down the back door and very much limit the front one, because even in the Brood War, doors and Protoss with a rough/non-existent relationship. Still plenty of gates though. And well, not exactly the ideal outcome, as the Reaper jumps right by. There are two Dragoons on the way, so Classic not under immediate threat of death because he didn't go for an early expansion. The StarCraft 1 units are modified to maintain the essence of their roles in StarCraft 1, but brought to the StarCraft 2 modern engine to be competitive. The Zealot on the other side of the map with, I believe, a little more shields, same amount of HP, but the Reaper's nonetheless easily able to outrange it, as despite the time since the Brood War, the Protoss are still very much relying on dude with laser swords as their main army composition. Alright, it may look cool, but I believe the Terrans with man with gun have maybe advanced a little further. But the Dragoons, moving forward, bounced back. The Goon range upgrade. I want to say singularity charge, but Goon range is much more descriptive and arguably more fun. The SCV being targeted and literally just needs to cut the ribbon on that bunker. The last possible second, the SCV pulled off the line. Has to cover for the shift of his now dead co-worker. In this economy, but the SCV, and on the high ground, not able to target the Goons. A siege tank, though, does not need siege mode, as this is the StarCraft 2 version, trying to get some high ground vision. One Goon steps its fancy little toes into range. The barracks will actually provide the vision for the siege tank to drive this back. And to my understanding, mischance does exist here in StarCraft Evo. A relatively recent patch, but a 50% chance to miss up to the high ground. I don't know if that's limited to maps that are directly based on Brood War, or like Brood War maps with the SC Evo tag, or in general. But RNGesus is once again making a cameo appearance, and will be accepting your thoughts and your prayers. That means the high ground is much more important to maintain. Missing a couple siege tank shots at a key timing, or not being able to snipe them off, is absolutely devastating, as watching Artosis for approximately 4 seconds will easily tell. Wow. Putting the Blue Blood and Blue Storm. Siege tank's not quite close enough, but the expansion will eventually finish. There's a Robo Bay on the way, and I think Classic's headed towards Reavers. Already has Zealot legs. Gonna get them all juiced up in order to run even faster so they can smack them with their swords. Charge into glorious battle. Meanwhile, Taeja with Cloak Banshees on the way. A definite, well, both, oh, well, okay, well, I keep saying that. And it keeps me in the same situation. I don't apologize for saying the same thing. When the Reaper just jumps in, past the double pylon block, the probes are forced to try to execute a citizen's arrest. He saves it with the shuttle, which seems like a grossly misuse of the shuttle itself. And it's not a warp prism, so you have to be right underneath it to slurp it up. At least technology on that front has advanced. Is he trying? Well, there's literally nothing back here. There's a Dragoon who is a conscientious objector. Scarab's now being produced. There's that little hand. Get over here. Okay, get in the car. Get in the van. Build your Scarabs before we leave. They do not auto-build, as I found playing this mod before. I believe he's getting the... Well, he's getting... shuttle speed now. Do we have the tooltips? Jimmy, I need tooltips. How many times? Yes. Yes, shuttle speed is on the way. Which, you know, I probably could have figured that one out, but making everything faster, the explicit shuttle to ferry around the Reaver. Meanwhile, the Cloaked Banshee comes in, though, with absolutely no detection. I don't even think there's an observatory. So both players are going to be doing absolutely terrible, terrible damage to the workers on either side, assuming that Classic doesn't fly into Marines in a missile turret. But splits the Marines. Absolute overkill on one of them. Classic straight up just not having a good time this game. Taeja's StarCraft 2 Terran. The shuttle, fast enough maybe to escape. Has a lot of HP, but not enough. Wow, everything that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong for Classic. He did not successfully... Well, he's fine. There are no warp gates here, just a ye old gateway. The Reapers jumped in. The Dragoons got almost nothing done. The Reaver was obliterated by siege tanks. The shuttle was taken out moments after the speed upgrade finished. But all these little things adding up. But overall, the macro itself, not going so poorly. What is that upgrade? There's a very shiny... Oh, he's building Scarabs. I was trying to see what he's building. The Scarabs show up in the production tab, which is quite a curious thing. But the Scarabs for the Reaver. I was really racking my brain about what that was. But they must be manually built, though you can queue them up. Classic now is at third base. 54 to 53 workers. The StarCraft 1 workers mine a little bit faster. I'm not sure if it's accelerating or just mining time. In order to balance out the Mules and Chrono Boost and Larva inject their StarCraft 1 counterparts, or StarCraft 2 counterparts. So generally you do want to maintain at least a bit of a worker lead, but it's not as critical as it might seem. Ooh, the siege tanks laying into the Dragoons, much like their soon-to-be Stalker counterparts. If you go back to the future, of course. Siege tanks, a very hard counter, especially the StarCraft 2 ones, which hit a lot harder, so cost more, and more supply. Storm is on the way, a tried-and-true method of wiping large amounts of enemy units off the map for 27 years now. And Storm in the Brood War does even more damage, though spread out over more time, as well as access to the Taeja Amulet upgrade, which allows them to pop out of those gateways. But now a Reaver drop. Zealots in front. The Reaver just obliterates one of the Marauders. Another shot. And again, really just leaving me with blue Scarabs right now, these Reaver drops. I'm waiting for those big, huge explosions, and I'm just not getting it. Classic, I'm sure, more disappointed than anyone, as those Reavers, underwhelming at a massive understatement. Checking for any observers. I assume he has an observatory. The Dragoons cannot blink away, but they can go straight to the unit's loss tab. No concussive shells, but it's not needed as the Dragoons scamper away far too slowly to matter. Taeja Amulet now in production. The Templar on the high ground, though. The observer spots all this. Storm is completed, and the storms rain down. Terrible, terrible damage being dealt, but not enough to actually break this push. The siege tanks caught in the center. Storms Multiple observers might be taken out. He gets to the high ground, but the Zealots aren't going to care too much about the high ground advantage. Storms on the siege tanks, rips them apart, drags some of the Templar forward. Classic of 30 supply. Taeja on the run. The stims are good, but they're in full retreat. The Zealots have their legs done. They don't have charge. They didn't learn how to run that fast in the Brood War, but they can move along at a very steady clip, and without stim and concussive shells, they'll easily get overwhelmed. The upgrades, +1/+1 for Taeja. Classic at +1 attack and working on +2/+1. He's got a 4th base now, but so does Taeja in the top left corner. There's not too many bases to work with, though I believe they have somewhat more minerals and a little bit more gas than their StarCraft 2 counterparts. The economy's somewhat adjusted here. Double drop at the natural. No recall ability, no arbiters on hold. And now 11 probes will be suffering for it. The gateways, building as fast as they can. Some of the charge lots, Zealots coming back. Leg lots, speed lots. That's the one. They had legs the whole time. Source, my eyes. But shout out to my blind viewers. Kind of have to. Dark Templar slips in and slashes one of the SCVs in the top corner. Will force a response out of Taeja. Classic still maintaining a huge amount of supply. Mass gate, 13 gateways, a robo, and double forge. Though he doesn't have upgrades in production, now he just finished the 2-1. Storms inside the shuttle, and plenty of Templar gliding across on the ground. Taeja trying to hold the high ground, actually using Hellbats to deal with the speed lots here. An interesting choice. We'll see how it works out for him. The storms don't really discriminate. Absolutely annihilating anything that comes close. And the Hellbats are waddling forward, and the Dragoons taking them down one by one. Medevac's helping out. The Dragoons crumbling when faced with direct confrontation, much like many RTS players when they have a social experience. Well, trying to juggle back, but that's not a warp prism. It doesn't work like that. Classic getting melted on the field. Classic clearly trying to micro it like it's a warp prism, but it's just not working. The shuttle coming dangerously close. Again. The storm! With such overwhelming power, though, to soften up much of the rest of the bio. The battle continues, trying to use the high ground. Some of those shots definitely missing. Classic maybe not respecting that mischance of the high ground, and the Marauders are still working their way forward, tearing through all the goons. Taeja sidesteps another storm, targets down the Templar. Classic is getting overrun on the field. Taeja, though, still, his supply suffering. There are 11 Zealots and a Templar in production. It's so nice to be able to actually see what a Protoss is producing and not relying on them magically warping things in over 3 seconds and hoping I catch what it is while casting. Just side note there. Reaver in production. The storms are good. The speed lots, arguably better. Classic maintaining a huge amount of supply. Double shuttle. In order to... Well, they're called shuttles, so I was just going to say shuttle them in. Which is still accurate. Things a lot more literal in the Brood War. The storms! But the Hellbats, for the most part, tanking it. Not that there's a preset kill limit, but Classic losing so much on the field, but building plenty more back at home. Ghosts and Hellbats on the way. What a composition out of Taeja. Not usually used against StarCraft 2 Protoss, but without Colossi, without Disruptors, the Hellbat's definitely a more valuable choice. They have enough HP to weather at least one storm, maybe not much more than that. But the Templar dropping out of the speed shuttles. 12 probes dead at one of the outlying bases, but the Medevacs, once they slapped them in the sky, it made it a lot easier for them to heal reliably. And they just eat the storms and ask for seconds. Not that the Protoss would have any without mouths. Absolute brawl on the field. Classic losing 3,000 more resources, 70 speed lots so far. Another storm backed up against between a rock and a hard place is Taeja. The Ghost being cut down before they can get saved. Almost loses a medevac as well. Taeja back down to 110 versus 135 supply. The Protoss just keep trundling across the map. Goons and speedlots and even reavers are crawling their way across, though it could take a while. Speedlots dropped in past the depot. Caduceus reactor now on the way, clearly inspired by the Brood War upgrade. Double medevac energy regen. You know what? He might need it. Zealot's gun down. 2-2 done for Taeja. Only 2-1 for Classic. There's a couple storms ready. Forced to split, but the Hellbats are actually working out so far. Another Archon merged. The Reaver has crawled its way up. It is ready to blow. I don't know why I'm saying it like that, but you know what? It seems... Hey! No. 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 Christopher Reaver. Heading north. Not a lot of luck with the Reavers, but plenty with the storms for Classic, though the supplies are evening up. Classic with significantly less army as he has 69 probes, giving him a very nice economy, but does he have enough to actually close it out against a Taeja who is bringing together a much more coherent Terran army? The Storm's still an existential threat. The Scarab's a much bigger question mark. But the high ground... Whoop. Medevac is knocked out, but the high ground right now is Taeja's. The Templar moving forward. The Storms held in reserve. Where did that shuttle with a Reaver go? I found it. And 6 SCVs. Not as much as I hoped for, but better than we've seen so far. Meanwhile, Reavers trying to crawl their way up. Templar getting dangerously close to the front line. Reaver spits out another Scarab. More Scarabs coming in. The Reaver caught in front. Another Scarab coming out. But the EMPs hit all the Templar. And the Terran army just rolling over everything. Some more storms out of the gateways. Archons merging in the midst of the entire fight. And Taeja may regret ignoring them as they do a lot of damage across the board. The Reaver drop comes back around. The only one with any experience of firing off more than maybe 2 shots. Taeja chases down the gateway army. The shuttle caught in front. Another Reaver almost killed. There's a... No. No. Not again. There's a split second of delay, partially to target the Reaver before it drops out, and partially so that way it can be targeted down. That's the situation right now. That's what you're seeing with the Reaver taking... Oh, he didn't... The refractory period of the Reaver is far too long for Classic, and very, very stressful for Taeja. But that split second, I think it's like half a second. Obliterate some more. This shuttle, the lifeline for Classic, and it's a very thin one at that, as Taeja's Ghost Hellbat army, the Ghost Bat army. The Reaver drop is still intact, but a Nexus will go down. Taeja's Classic is clearly struggling with the fact these aren't Warp Prisms. That is what's happening now. Warp Prisms are able to pick up, not drop, but pick up from significantly further away. Whereas the shuttles, you gotta be right underneath, like back in the day. The Reaver pulling itself up, just doesn't even have any Scarabs, just a conscientious observer. And speaking of, doesn't look like any observers, but no cloak on the Ghost. Arcs out, spreads around. Another storm doing so much damage. The storm's just chewing through everything. Another shuttle goes down. The Reaver drop is still here. How are you still alive? The plot armor on this shuttle is ridiculous. This thing used to fly Zeratul around. Alright, the Nexus is burning. I don't think it actually burns, but it's a very cool animation that I haven't seen. Another shuttle, a very dead Marine. A same shuttle. Just keeps going. Meanwhile, Taeja angling north. The speedlots will engage. 3-2 versus 3-2. Another storm! But the speedlots have a tough working relationship with the Templar, as the storm definitely hit more zealots than it hit Marines there. And speaking of, even more probes gonna go down to a casual run-by, but this time the Scarab and Storm, the tsunami of splash damage down the center, doing terrible, terrible damage to all the Terrans. Taeja, both sides, really just laying into one another. Taeja's ghost bats mostly evaporated. He's still building 2 hellbats at a time. Interesting he's building them in hellbat mode. It's just easier that way, I guess. Meanwhile, the speed lot's coming to deal with the drop, but of course, Taeja can just pick up and get away. There's no blinking those goons in. But classic. Don't be hasty. Alright? If it doesn't take a long time to do, it's something not worth doing at all. The reverse! The drops, the storms! So much damage, but he drops right in the midst! The storms rain down across the entire front line. The men rain down across the back and are immediately melted by the Archons. Taeja has spent so long slapping together an army that's been able to engage Classic on the field, and then the field is raised by a tsunami of Protoss splash damage that Taeja clearly could not deal with. A moment of indiscretion, a lifetime of disaster. He may never recover from this. Another Scarab hits the front line. The Reavers finally making a cameo appearance. I assume there's some... Yep, I'm going. I'm awake. I'm awake. Do they have a hand in... I just want to stare at the Reavers some more. Taeja struggling while Classic ambles are... How many Reavers? 7 Reavers have died. I would be surprised if they fired that many more Scarabs. Taeja struggling to break out of his base. He still has 2 northern bases, but Classic has just continued rallying across the map. Despite his obvious struggles and the clear muscle memory of the dropships working against him, it's so obvious he's entirely used. I don't care, even though he's Korean, which means he has genetic memory of Brood War, even though he's actually older than Brood War, unlike many players. Classic actually one of the oldest pros in StarCraft 2 at 33. Yeah. If you thought, well, that's not that old. How's the back pain? And do you still have your CD key to Brood War? Do you still have a CD-ROM drive with which to use it? Yeah. Let's move on, old man. And speaking of tech, Classic. Okay, Terran Amulet done. I mean, there haven't really been any meaningful upgrades, at least to unit functionality, for quite a while, as they have been gutting each other on the field. Classic raining down, and Taeja doing what he can to avoid it. It feels like Taeja had a better idea of how he wanted to handle the game, but Classic, I mean, mechanics are mechanics. He had the units, and only the outlying bases of his economy were ever really touched. Wow, that's far too many Templar. There's 0 ghosts, which is not very many. The storms crackling through. So visceral. The Archons as well somehow slimmed down despite the fact they're made out of entirely energy, yet still slimmer creatures than their StarCraft 2 counterparts. Everybody put... Classic makes it rain. But there's just not enough from Taeja, despite the storms essentially disturbing only empty air. That's it. Backed up against the corner. Classic just able to produce far too much. Not sure what his name actually means. It seems like random letters he put out there, but Taeja. It is Taeja with 55 Hellbats up against 185 Speedlots, 11 Archons, 26 High Templar, and I'll be honest, 7 of the saddest Reavers I've ever seen. I haven't seen a lot of Reavers, but I've seen enough to know those were just straight up not having a good time. All right, like... Classic. The tide of Protoss coming across the map, making it almost impossible. From the very start, pulling himself up by his leg straps, as Taeja got everything he wanted. He knocked out the first Reaver drop. The Reaper getting in was just offensive. That was upsetting. All right? He put 2 pylons, not 1, but 2 pylons down. Again, gracias to Enki, the Spanish caster, for putting on these show matches. He's recently moved into mostly SC Evo matches. And while I still love my classic SC2, if you would, I like variety. Variety is the spice of life, and the spice must flow. Also, this mod is getting updated significantly more often than base StarCraft 2. I'm just saying. In fact, they've had for the first time, not relevant here, SC Evo has actually balanced StarCraft 2. No, we haven't removed Terran. But they've made a massive change to actual StarCraft 2 unit. Until this point, the philosophy has been only change StarCraft 1. Like, work around StarCraft 2. But unfortunately, StarCraft 2 is not working around anything, it feels like, recently. So they've made a massive change. The Spore Crawler has been increased in damage against biological air by 10. You might be like, who has biological air? And the answer is only Zerg. Or very incredibly and pedantically, technically, if your teammate in 2v2 has Phoenixes and they lift a bio unit under a spore or over a spore. Again, pedantically. So, yes, this is happening. Nobody's proxying. I'm pontificating. Like and subscribe. Check out Enki. But what was I? Oh, sidetracked myself too far. But yes, the change is because apparently StarCraft 1 Zerg is so much stronger than StarCraft 2 Zerg. It was the most imbalanced matchup. The idea is the StarCraft 1 races can face against StarCraft 2. Not necessarily. It's not intended to be StarCraft 1 versus StarCraft 1, though I personally really like playing that. It's not balanced around that. It's StarCraft 1 versus StarCraft 2 explicitly in those matchups. And usually in series, the players trade off, including this one. I just picked out a couple highlight games, and you can check out the rest on Enki's channel. I already talked about Habla Español. But, and I mean, even if you don't speak Spanish, you can see all the games there. A lot of games are kind of one-sided cheeses, to be honest. As you might expect, with less practiced maps, balance, and generally players, a lot of strategies get through, and sometimes that's fun, and sometimes, But you know what? If we get an undue, I don't know. If we really want to see all the cheeses, I actually have been saving and told Jimmy to save a bunch of replays that are under a certain amount of time. So we can get like a cheese charcuterie board for a video or something. But the amount of effort for return, considering how long those games are, is usually not worth it. I digress. So, yeah, the first change to StarCraft 2 unit. Not fixing the Cyclone bug, not changing any major design, just making them a little better against StarCraft 1 mutas, which are actually very good. And are just straight up better than StarCraft 2 mutas in pretty much every single way. So much so that they just are almost unbeatable in ZVZ, apparently. And between sunken colonies and... Is that a fusion core? Yes, nowadays we don't need a physics lab attached to a science facility. Taeja is battlecruiser rushing against ranged goons. Nope, that was a terrible sentence. Let's try that again. Against Rangoons. I'm sure I'm the first one to come up with that one. We're on Purity and Industry, which you might recognize from the StarCraft 2 map pool. Quite a while ago, but was in one of our more unique maps. So, and also in the StarCraft Evo kind of Pro League map pool, because it makes for some interesting games. Especially things like, say, Battlecruiser Rush. And Shuttle Speed is on the way for Classic, who's Reaver rushing. Of course. A classic tactic in this matchup. But a Battlecruiser feels like a pretty hard counter to, you know, that whole idea. So, Where do we go from here? Also, their regular balance and model/animation updates to the mod. You can check out SCEvo.net. It's super cool. Has way more updates than the official StarCraft 2 site for the last half a decade, just in the last few months. But I digress yet again. In fact, if you're watching this like the day it comes out, then there is a $15,000 tournament going on in Korea with some of the top players, including like Clem, I don't think Cyril, Max Pax, who put their hand in. And some of them have had their hands slapped down by random Koreans who know StarCraft 1 or StarCraft Evo way better. So we're going to have some replays of that soon. But now, the game that's in front of us. All that's happened is a Reaper and an SCV dying. But so much more. An observer is spotting the battlecruiser. There are slow zones across the entire gap. Classic is going for a Corsair, which I truly and honestly have no idea how that does against battlecruisers. I know these StarCraft 1 units have very different kind of damage multipliers, whether it be versus shields, light, like a lot of different options. And a fleet beacon is on the way and a second Stargate as well. The carrier is a very different unit in StarCraft 1. I mean, it's similar, yet the functionality is significantly different. Not very different, but it's a difference. Shield battery. Splayed out across. What an odd look. Kind of like it. Jumps just barely out in time. That last volley of goonfire would have just smacked the battlecruiser out of the sky. Potentially almost ended the game right there. If he loses a battlecruiser at this stage, I mean, Taeja's going mech, so I don't think it's the end of the game, but obviously it doesn't help. Carriers! Brood War carriers. I believe there's an upgrade for interceptor capacity. They have a similar cost. We'll just have to see how they play out. Part of the reason carriers are kind of mediocre in StarCraft 2 is, one, so much directly counters them, especially in this matchup. Even battlecruisers, because of their very high armor. So the carriers pretty much can't beat battlecruisers because of their tactical jump and Yamato cannon punching right through. But, oh no! God, these Reaver... More like Reaver knots. This is the worst day for Reaver drops. Honestly, I came into this series hoping I could clickbait Reavers. Whatever. Well, clearly, they're not going to be the difference maker here today. But don't worry, we still have, like, carriers and... all we need is, like, a Dark Archon or something. We'll be good to go. More factories on the way. Classic falling, but this is one of Classic's favorite strategies in StarCraft 2 as well. Historically, he's been the high-tech Protoss, willing to sit back and just build up the entire tech tree. Nowadays, it's in style in StarCraft 2 with energy recharge and all that, but no energy recharge here. But carriers. I just want to hear the carrier sounds, please. I'm just going to listen to the sounds for a while, because Brood War sounds are just... How are they so much better?
Our pylon is under attack.
I don't think StarCraft 2 is bad, but StarCraft 1 is so immensely recognizable. I think it's partially working with the technology... Partially working with the technology at the time, and a very coherent direction. But... I'm not even nostalgic. I didn't play in the Brood War. Alright, I know that's heresy. But I was not a Brood War player till after StarCraft 2 came out. Really, I didn't play much until Remastered. And I still don't, but I like to watch, like most of you. You mentioned Artosis' stream. Okay, maybe not that, but you know. I value my mental health, unlike some people. Well, here comes the siege tanks. The carriers, though. There's absolutely no response. Siege tanks, not a good counter to carriers in any version of the game. Where are the battlecruisers? I just want to hear more carriers have a... So, Taeja, I thought he knew about the carriers, but the fact he just straight up attacked across, he's gonna siege up again. The Dragoons could back off, or he could just finish this off quickly. Double shuttle drops headed for the main. Unable to warp in, but shuttles speed right on by the missile turret. And the reinforcements aren't going to be there anytime soon. But Thors, he's got the Bronze League Heroes unit composition. Thors and battle cruisers. Well, here we are. And even using the fancy skins because we're not in a Super Pro official tournament, so we can actually have fun. I know, right? 6 Thors, 3 battlecruisers, a smattering of other units. 7 SCVs dead. Taeja, nearly maxed out, but Classic's even closer. He's got Kadir and Amulet on the way. The carriers will unleash their interceptors. Yamato Cannon obliterates one of the carriers. The Thors will be automatically targeted onto them if they get close enough. I'm not sure if they have enough range to outrange the carriers. It really depends on the micro of the interceptors, I believe. Wow, so much in production for Class. It's so weird not having Warp Gate. So that way everything's in the production tab. Kind of taking over for what usually is Terran in half the screen. But 6 more gateways, another forge, a whole bunch more zealots, a nexus in the bottom left corner. Taeja is maxed out, but Classic is taking pretty much the entire map. Another shuttle drop headed in. Some speed lots in there. The Reaver crawling its way along to participate in the group activity, but the Thors are absolutely pounding their way through the carriers, and they will be knocked out of the sky with great prejudice. And that's something that Terrans do very well. Meanwhile, though, the shuttle... 29? 33 SCVs? The speed lots completely gutting the economy. Somehow, that was just like 4 of them. Maybe there were 2 shuttles? How? He lost a bunch of speed lots in the fight, but like a third of Taeja's economy is cut down. But there goes another shuttle. He jumps to the corner. Nothing even close to match it. There's no way to track these down for Classic. What is that? I think that Dark Archon energy upgrade, and Maelstrom is queued up behind. Classic heading for Darkons, because it wasn't until after the war that the progressive Protoss realized that High Templar and Dark Templar should be able to merge together. Before that, well, we don't talk about it. Meanwhile, storms across the board, the Thors weathering them with relative ease, still doing a lot of damage. But the Thors, of course, have plenty of HP. Battlecruisers joining up with them. More gateway units trickling out, and there's not that much in front of this. A few more storms and half a dozen speed lots might be enough to break all this. But the battlecruisers getting involved as well. Cyclones making a cameo appearance, getting in on the action. But down goes a battlecruiser. Thors versus siege tanks. Maelstrom in production. Again, though, Taeja is beaten back. He has the army. It feels like Taeja knows what he wants, but he doesn't have the economy to get it. Whereas Classic doesn't know what he needs, but he has the economy for anything. So quite a split. But more stuff counters less stuff, as I've heard smart, genius, and modest casters say in the past. And so far, Classic just leaning on that far superior production and economy. Dragoons, Gateway Man continues to A-move his way across. No, not another one. Just go home. Go home, Sam. You don't even have any scarabs. Hey, great job. He got Yamato Cannon before he could fire his second scarab. That was so sad. Well, Cyclone Battlecruiser is not a unit composition I've seen, maybe ever. We've seen Hell Clones with some Battlecruisers, but is that an Arbiter? I have no idea what abilities the Arbiter has as a baseline, but the Proto Mothership, I believe you need to upgrade pretty much everything but the base cloaking device. Oh, those cannons have a lot of HP. How much HP? 150, 150. It's the same amount of HP. It just feels... The SCV... Big job, huh? The SCVs getting combat pay for repairing the battlecruisers. I think he queued them up on the other side of the map, and they've just still been going, slowly but surely repairing, despite the battlecruisers clearly, making it very... Wow, it's still going. Now that has to be recall. Alright, why does... Let me see my tooltips. Yeah, the recall ability. Coming online. Arbiter's in production. Jumps back home. All the way back to the main, seeing the goons. Some Templar caught in the midst, and the storms! Far superior to the Cyclones. DTs merges into a dark. Well, that was quick. Making a cameo appearance for less than 1 second. More Templar being taken out as Taeja just outrunning and outmaneuvering pretty much everything. The gateway units rallied across. Another thing that Classic probably doesn't have that much experience with, to be honest. Rallying gateway units like a filthy Terran. But the cloaking out of the Arbiter, the cloaking field working well. I believe you need to upgrade the stasis in order to activate it. Recall is almost completed. Not sure it's going to be a big factor here. Almost knocks down the Arbiter with the clones. The Tribunal. Working on everything. Look at those beautiful stargates. Back in my day. But the Hell Clone Battlecruiser Classic is maxed out, though. Another Yamato on a very unlucky, just jumps into the midst of almost nowhere. The Cyclones, Hell Clones, doing a lot, but Classic just 95 probes. How many gates? 14. The main base is just filled with gates. Weapons of mass production here. The battlecruisers found their way over to the southern base again, but the storms are chewing through the mech army. Remarkably similar to at least my impression of the Brood War mech, or Brood War Terran versus Protoss, where it usually ends up with mech versus Gateway Arbiter. But the Cyclones will never be Goliaths, okay? No matter how many times we try to rework you, 4 now, you'll never be a Goliath. And a Thor is just 3 Goliaths in a very large trench coat. And the game is over. Before we get to see any real Darkons, before we get to see stasis from the Arbiters, I think I get it. Yeah. Classic still has 93 probes and like 7 bases. Taeja has 132 supply. Wait, he lost... Wait, whoa. Did Zeratul win the game? This is how the game ended. I'm gonna go to the Taeja cam here. There's a single DT. Wait, do the DTs not give a notification? I think that's a Brood War thing, right? Wait, let me check. So, the DT is about to do an attack. There should be a notification like this one. Go into the Taeja cam. They don't. The DT is actively killing SCVs. And Taeja. Now we gotta stay on the Taeja cam, of course. Oh, there's the SCVs are under attack. Why did it take so long? He sees it. He sees the army. He's yes, the GG scans. GG. Classic. If the shoe fits, you're able to kick the Terrans out of the game with it. Classic clearly a little unwieldy with the StarCraft 1 Protoss. But his macro, his mechanics, and his decision-making still so good. It was highly amusing watching him kind of flail with the shuttle. I'm still upset about the Reavers, but you know what? Can't argue with results. The sheer amount of units he was able to send across the field. So hopefully, you're enjoying the SC Evo. I'm looking to show specific matchups. Of course, you can check out the mod SC2.net and in-game if you actually play it. On any server, you can add the mod to your own games. The AI works against it, just in case that's what you're interested in, as any StarCraft 1 or 2. But thank you for watching. Thank you to Enki again. Gracias. And make sure to check them out if you speak Spanish or if you just want to check out more games. All right? Maybe you don't like listening to some nerd talk over them. You just want to watch the gameplay. Well, to each their own, I guess. But thank you for watching. If you got the means of motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But your liking and subscribing is still free. At least for now. So, thank you to our Mule Tier patrons bringing in those extra minerals. Big Jiggy, Devin, Dork, Kate, Mario, Suit, and everyone. Glad you still enjoy. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Good luck, have fun. Stay chill.